Hi, good to see you.
Dr. Cate,
Thanks for
welcome,
inviting me.
welcome. So
Um,
happy to have you in India's low carb conference, and you have a big fan following here, very big fan following. Your
oh,
deep nutrition, dark calories are something. They're all wonderful books. So before we start our session, I'll just have a round of introduction. So I'll just introduce myself also for the audience in case someone is new. So I'm Shashi, a certified metabolic health coach from D-Life, India's first and only award-winning low-carb platform. This was founded in 2014 by Anup Singh, who is an IIT Roorkee silver medalist engineer, and also he had the Icons of India award. D-Life pioneered the low-carb movement in India. Anoop's groundbreaking 100 grams per day max protocol of carbs back in 2012 made low carb possible for India for diabetes and obesity management, especially for vegetarians. So in 2020, he also launched the D-Life Diploma course, which is the only NSCD Government of India approved with the largest CPD of 144 hours.
wow.
So Group and I, of course, co-organized the first conference in 2023, second one in 2024, and this is the third one in 2025. So
Can I just step away for 1 minute? I'm so sorry. My pet is going to be driving me crazy. She's climbing the walls, literally. I'm so sorry. Yes. All righty. So yeah, well, that's very impressive. Thank you for the introduction because it's always helpful to get some background.
Cate Shanahan is an MD, a board-certified family physician, and globally recognized health advocate. Since 2004, she has been standing up to the corrupt health authorities who are promoting processed ingredients, especially the toxic seed oils, the Hateful Eight. Dr. Cate works have informed academics, nutrition leaders, world-renowned MDs, as well as the paleo, primal, low-carb, keto, carnivore, anti-aging, and functional medicine movement. Thanks to the massive publicity around LA Lakers pro nutrition program, she created deep nutrition inspired by the generation of nutrition within the leaders. So our book is very, very popular. And we know that, the book also mentions the avoidance of seed oil and consumption of superfood like bone broth, live culture ferments, organ meats, traditional fats, oils, and activated whole grains and seeds. These principles are about transformative health to millions, including professional athletes who are all well known. And as a family physician, Dr. Cate has personally worked 1:1 with thousands of patients to improve energy metabolism, reduce fatigue, cellular inflammation, organ dysfunction. With the subsequent book, she has now authored the most extensive body of research showing the Eightful Eight seed oils and processed ingredients that are causing obesity, inflammation, cancers, dementia, mental illness, and the host of other illness, especially even childhood obesity. So welcome, Dr. Cate. We are going to discuss the toxic effects of seed oils, and most importantly, the term which you coined, the Hateful Eight.
Thank you so much for inviting me to be here with your meeting today. It's a great opportunity, and I'm excited to help.
So I'll ask with the question, what are the three fundamental factors that makes it impossible for an oil to be truly healthy?
So yeah, there's a bunch of things we have to think about to decide, right? Because when we're talking about saying a food is toxic, which we are when we're talking about these seed oils, it's a big deal, right? We can't just throw out the terms. We have to understand what's going on. And so my research has focused on identifying, what is the problem with the oils that have now flooded our food supply. And there are three things that pertain to this discussion. And the most important is really the refining, because any oil, even olive oil, cannot be truly healthy if it's refined. And that is one thing that kind of took me a while to understand, because you cannot find in the medical literature any information about the oil refining. To understand how the oil is refined, I had to go basically behind the scenes in the refinery world and study the manufacturing processes, right? I'm a medical doctor. not a chemical engineer, but I had to become familiar with how these oils are manufactured. And so I asked people who actually make the oils. You know, I've interviewed multiple people who run the factories. I've interviewed people who write the books on how to run a factory. It's very complicated in there. And from doing all of that, the key thing that makes any oil that is refined unhealthy is that nutrients are removed, right? So when we're talking about, I think everybody agrees that olive oil is a healthy oil, right? Well, no, if it's a refined olive oil, it's not actually healthy. It's not going to be toxic. So then the next question is, what is the difference between a refined oil that is toxic and a refined oil that is healthy, right? So that has to do with the second factor, and that is the chemical composition. So fats are made out of fatty acids, and certain fatty acids are chemically unstable, should not be exposed to high heat, oxygen, metals. They're very fragile. They can't even be exposed to light, right? So if the oil seed contains a lot of these fatty acids that are fragile and it gets refined, there's no way it's going to survive the intense heat and destructive properties of the refining, because refining is complicated. So what happens when we refine, say, like soy oil or corn oil, I believe those are both pretty common now in India, is that the seed is heated, then it's pressurized. Often there's a solvent called hexane that is used to be more efficiently getting the oil out of the seed. And the crude oil is not edible, right? The oil that you press from soy or corn, as you squeeze it out, you can't eat that stuff. It's a thick, brown, vile-looking, disgusting smelling acrid, would burn your nose. So that's why the refining is necessary. But when we're talking about oils, the seeds that have these unsaturated fatty acids that are so fragile, that refining is going to break up the fatty acid, and breaking up natural molecules generates toxins. So the toxins in the oils that are problematic, that I call the hateful eight, those toxins are not added in the factory. They're not intentionally added. Even that hexane that gets added, that's not the main problem, because most of the hexane can easily be removed. It can be evaporated out. It's a gas. There's almost none left. And it's important to understand that we're not adding chemicals in the factory. It's that the chemicals that were in the oil seed are breaking down. And why is that important to understand? Because they're going to continue to break down after they leave the factory. So you cannot test these bottles of soy oil or corn oil as they leave the factory and expect to see the amount of toxicity you're going to get when you are eating foods cooked in these oils, because it's not there yet, right? What I mean is, as these oils leave the factory, they already contain trace amounts of very serious toxins, not the hexane, but aldehydes and other breakdown products of the fatty acids. And then just over time, that's going to multiply. So by the time that, when it leaves the factory, it's only maybe parts per billion of different toxins. But by the time you open it, there's many more, maybe 10 times as much. By the time you cook with it, during the cooking, you can create maybe 1,000 times the concentration of toxin. And that's the problem. That's why we have to understand that these oils are not toxic because of just what happens in the factory. That's part of it. Removing the nutrients, starting the breakdown process of the fatty acids, that's part of it. But the other part of it is that it keeps going, keeps creating new toxins, because those bottles of soy oil are unlike anything else in our food supply, because they are breeding new toxins. And we cannot cook with that without generating more toxins. And if we cook, say, for example, 30 minutes in our house, we want to do some fried chicken. You know, we put a bunch of oil in the pan, put some chicken in there with some batter on it, get the batter crispy. 15 minutes one side, cooks it, flip it over another 15 minutes. In that half an hour, we are making that chicken as toxic as cigarette smoke. So that it's equivalent to smoking a couple of cigarettes, maybe even a whole pack. Depends how much breading you put on there and how much gets absorbed, right? So that's crazy. You don't want to be cooking up cigarette chicken. You want to have delicious, crispy fried chicken, right? With no toxins in it. So that's the second one. So we've talked about the fact that it's refined. You can't come out of a factory with a refinery with a healthy oil because you've removed the stabilizing factors, you've removed the nutrients. We've talked about the chemical makeup. The polyunsaturated oils are not able to withstand all that heating, and you should not cook with refined polyunsaturated oils. And the last factor is a little different. It has to do with the breeding. And I'll touch on this again later on, like with the next question, but there are seeds that humanity has been using for so long that we have bred them to be stable for cooking. We're not like, we never use these every day. Like, for example, sesame oil, right? That's a very popular cooking oil. I believe you use that in India. And like mustard seed oil also in India, right? Those have been bred for a long time, and they are able to yield an oil that is healthy because of the intelligence of the breeding. It makes it that there are more antioxidants in there, there's more nutrients in there, and the oil is yielded very easily with simple mechanical presses. You don't need high heat, you don't need all this pressure that you do with the soybeans, which were never cultivated for oil. They were cultivated for using as whole food. So those are the three factors. Whether it's refined or not, you cannot have refined oils are not healthy. I don't even care if we're talking about coconut. Refined coconut is not going to be healthy. It's just not as toxic as the seed oils. But you've removed nutrients. It can't be healthy. The second is the fatty acid profile. And then the third is the breeding. Has humanity been preparing these things to be used for a source of oil, efficient source of oil? Or are there other nutrients in there that will stabilize it? Those are the three things that that I needed to consider in order to figure out which of the oils are going to be good for us, which of the oils are going to be toxic for us, and to create this middle category of oils that are okay but not great. And so those are things that are stable but not refined. Like, I'm sorry, that are stable but they are refined, like refined olive oil. It's not going to be toxic, but it's not going to be good for you. The same with refined palm oil, refined coconut oil. That's the middle category. So it's not just that there's good and bad, there's also okay, but not really very nutritious. It's not toxic yet, but it can't be considered nutritious. And so I talk about all of those three categories on my website, and it's so important to understand those three categories and what oils are in there if you want to be healthy, because these are the major source of calories. At least in America, people are getting about 30, well, from total fats, they're getting about 40% of their calories from total fats. And in America, if you're not avoiding the unhealthy oils, you're getting 30% of your calories from what I call the hateful eight, which is
So we have been hearing and reading about Hateful Eight. What Hateful Eight? What exactly is it? I think many of us are using it without knowing the meaning.
right. So, well, okay. So I thought of the words because there's a movie called The Hateful Eight by Quentin Tarantino, right? So it was kind of a catchy thing. Actually, my husband thought of it, but I thought it was a great idea. And I wanted to come up with a term to identify the oils that are bad, because there isn't one, right? Just saying something is a seed oil, that doesn't tell you if it's good or bad, because sesame seed oil is healthy. If it's, virgin oil, unrefined. The same with mustard seed oil, the same with peanut oil, and peanut is a seed. So we needed to have a term that would identify the problematic oils, and there just isn't one. The industry doesn't, create a term for that. Why would they? And just using the term seed oil doesn't capture it. So I created the term the Hateful 8 because I want people to know that there's 8 that you have to basically memorize them. And those are corn, canola, cottonseed, soy, sunflower, safflower, rice bran, and grapeseed. So those are the 8 problematic oils in most of the world. Now, you may have a ninth, so you might have like the nasty 9 there in India. If there's a version of mustard oil that is refined, I would say that would also be a bad one. That would be toxic. So unrefined mustard oil is good. I wouldn't use it every day because people didn't. It's just, we're not meant to use these tiny seeds for oil every single day, but we can use it in proper proportion, just like anything else in our diets. There has to be a proper proportion.
So these hateful eight, how bad are they? Are they worse than other foods which we think are bad for us?
These are the worst things in the food supply because there's nothing else that you can say contains toxins that are deadly when it leaves the factory, and that by the time you cook with it is as toxic as smoking cigarettes. There's just simply nothing else like that. There's sugar that gets a bad rap because, rightly so, because there's no nutrition in it. And it can spike our insulin and have some hormonal effects. But it doesn't have toxicity. Glucose molecules are not toxins, right? If our blood level of glucose is too high, that can have toxic effects. But our blood level of glucose is not going to be too high unless we already have developed serious, complications of our diet, which is the type 2 diabetes. So if we don't have type 2 diabetes, our blood glucose levels don't get all that high where the glucose in there can have this toxic effect. I don't know if other people have talked about glycation, but that is how glucose molecules can have a toxic effect. They are sticky, and glycation just means that sugar now starts sticking to your body's cellular proteins and your joints. Glucose can have this toxic effect, but not until it reaches levels that are like twice what is normally going to be in your bloodstream. And that's not going to happen on an extended basis unless you're already insulin resistant. And my research strongly suggests that we become insulin resistant because of the Hateful 8, right? So I know that folks in India have looked at when did insulin resistance and diabetes start, and pretty much when the corn oil arrived and the soy oil arrived, right? So folks in India were eating a good amount of carbohydrates. They had been eating rice for a long time. They've been eating beans, high carb foods, but there wasn't the type 2 diabetes, not until the seed oils came. And so that's another reason why I can tell you that these oils are the worst of the worst, and they're definitely the most important thing to avoid first and foremost, more than anything else, because like the title of this talk says, they make us crave sugar. So it's harder to avoid sugar because now we want it, thanks to how the seed oils disrupt our body's metabolism, turning us into insulin resistant and type 2 diabetes.
So what you are telling is these oils, they are so toxic in a different way. So they make us crave more sugar. They make us insulin resistant. And probably that is the start of diabetes.
Yes, that's what my research says, is that if you want to make somebody diabetic really quickly, well, it's hard to do it without seed oils, right? You can shove sugar into their bodies, but unless you also deprive them of a lot of other nutrients, it's going to take a long time. But if you start shoving seed oils down there with the sugar, then that happens in an accelerated rate. And in fact, you can make, in animal studies, they've shown that you can make animals diabetic without sugar. You can just give them the seed oils and then they quickly become diabetic without adding any extra sugar or very little carbohydrate.
I think this is very horrible. And how we all know that all these oils are prevalent, do they come hidden in the food? How prevalent are they in our food supply? Are they hidden so that we may not know? How is it?
So when you go to a restaurant, they are absolutely hidden because you have no way of knowing what they've made in the restaurant. And even if you ask, a lot of times the people serving you the food, they have no idea what's in there. So it can be very, very difficult to find out. And when I was working with the Los Angeles Lakers for 6 years, one of my most time-consuming jobs was trying to find out what foods at the hotels they were staying at were safe, that were seed oil free. And I discovered that very, very few, even at these very fancy, expensive 5-star restaurants where the teams were staying, many hotels had like only 2 or 3 things on the menu that did not contain large amounts of seed oils. So they are hidden, but they're also in, they're also in a lot of processed foods that you buy that you might think are healthy. And they're, are they really hidden there? I mean, they do put it on the ingredients list, but you have to turn it around and there's like 50, 60 things you have to read through. The lettering is tiny. So if you have bad vision, yes, they're hidden.
So do this seed oil and carbohydrate, especially the refined carbohydrate, if taken together, they drive a lot of oxidative stress. How is it?
Yeah, so all by themselves, the seed oils promote oxidative stress because the toxins that are in the foods cooked with these oils, each one of them promotes this state of cellular imbalance that we call oxidative stress. That's what a lot of toxins are bad for us because they cause oxidative stress. So it's important maybe to understand a little bit about what is oxidative stress. That is the thing that kills us. So oxidative stress comes from oxygen reactions. That's why it sounds like oxygen. And there's all kinds of reactions with oxygen, in our world that we're more familiar with, like burning, right? Just a forest fire, that's a huge problem of oxidation that, converts trees that are not toxic into smoke that is toxic. You see, so oxidation creates toxins, and then those toxins turn around and cause stress in our bodies. They cause damage in our bodies. And so when we're suffering from damage caused by toxins, that's called oxidative stress. That's just one way to put it. Another way to think about it is rusting is an oxidation reaction. So when you have a car that's getting rusty, that's oxygen reacting with the iron. And the same kind of oxygen reactions that change chemicals from something good to something bad in the outside world also change our cell membranes from functional to dysfunctional inside our bodies. They damage our mitochondria, which are where our cells produce energy. They destroy our enzymes, which is how our bodies respond to insulin. And they can even destroy insulin hormone receptors or any hormone receptors. So oxidative stress opens us up to every single disease. Oxidative stress is basically the main cause of human disease and suffering. And the seed oils are the #1 cause of oxidative stress in our diets today. And so the seed oils are #1, and #2 are the refined carbohydrates and sugars, because they don't contain any nutrition. And it turns out that our body can really fight off oxidative stress really well when we are well nourished, because we actually can make our own antioxidants to control oxygen. But when we're not well nourished, we can't. And because sugars are empty calories, no nutrition, and refined flours like the wheat flour, and some foods that are very low nutrient, like just eating way too much rice, those don't have enough nutrition for our bodies to be able to make the antioxidants we need to prevent the oxidative stress. So when you combine that with toxins that start oxidative stress, and you combine foods that cannot create antioxidants to stop oxidative stress, you create a population of people who are constantly suffering from oxidative stress somewhere in their body, here or there, and that causes disease. Oxidative stress causes inflammatory reactions to start that we cannot control. So oxidative stress drives asthma, it drives psoriasis on the skin, all kinds of skin problems, it drives gut bloating and autoimmune diseases, and it certainly drives insulin resistance. That's my research shows that it's the main driver of insulin resistance and the main driver of cancer, because it destroys our mitochondria, and cancer begins in the mitochondria. So it's just a unbelievably productive, it's unbelievably toxic for us. But the good side of that is that, like, so many things will improve in your life once you learn about the Hateful 8 oils and learn what to do so you don't end up eating them accidentally.
So what is the real world implication of removal of seed oil? What if there's an ideal world and we remove seed oil? What will the benefits we will see?
Yeah, if we could evaporate all the seed oils from the food supply today, we would see people having like no new diseases would be developing, right? Or very few, because I think seed oils probably create 80 to 90% of these chronic diseases. And then we would start to see people changing. We would see people who are not they're not craving sugars anymore as badly, right? We eliminate the seed oils, and then we also have to open up the floodgates for the healthy fats that people used to eat. And so here in America, we did a lot of beef fat called tallow. I know you didn't do that over there in India, but you did a lot of ghee, right? The butter derivative, probably coconut oil in some places, possibly palm oil in some places, all unrefined. When we stop the unhealthy fats and we allow these healthy fats into our diet, we can pretty much end the kind of hunger that makes us want to snack all the time and overeat. So we would end most overeating, right? Suddenly people would not be so insatiably hungry anymore, and they wouldn't be snacking. They wouldn't be overeating so much, right? A lot of our food addictions would start to disappear, because when our brain is damaged by insulin, our brain is actually damaged by insulin resistance. Our brain is wired to think sugar is the only kind of food that we need. Like every time we eat, we need to have sugar. That's what insulin resistance does. That would change when we take away seed oils and give people healthy fats. We would also see very few new cancers developing. We would see people starting to lose weight without even trying. We would see autoimmune diseases reversing. We would see people wanting healthy foods instead of only craving junk all the time. It would radically change our world. It would my research shows that oxidative stress is also related to pregnancy complications, birth defects, premature babies. So it would make being pregnant easier safer, and it would help create a healthier generation of new babies. It would radically transform our entire world. And I think that is why now here in America, the new president's administration has a mandate to help reduce our exposure to these toxic oils. And they're calling it the MAHA movement, Make America Healthy Again. So hopefully you can get something like that going over there in your country with 3 times as many people. I think that would even be better for the world.
Hope so. So is the issue in seed oil linoleic acid, or is it the refining? So this is a very debatable thing. Why I'm asking is, it is O6, omega-6 is found in nuts and seeds also. Are they also toxic and harmful? Can you give us some clarity on this?
Yeah, that's such an important question, because most of the people talking about seed oils being toxic are not talking about the same things that I'm talking about. They're not talking solely about the oxidative stress and the toxin formation and how the refining changes it. And so they're looking at, I think, the wrong things, because it's the refining that makes these oils toxic. And so the seeds themselves are not refined and they're not toxic, right? You can overeat anything. And so, I wouldn't live only on like sunflower seeds or sesame seeds. I wouldn't live solely on those things. We want to have a balanced diet. But omega-6 all by itself, like linoleic acid and omega-6, that is what a lot of people have identified as the reason these seed oils are toxic. But that's a problem, because so many natural foods also have these things, and it's just not scientifically backed, right? There's what is valid about that argument is the concept of balance, because soy and corn oils have a lot more omega-6 than they do of something called omega-3, and having an imbalance like that, that's not good. But that's not the reason the seed oils are toxic, period.
I think this will clear a lot of confusion, because people think that taking walnuts is not good because it is having a lot of omega-6.
Yeah, I mean, that idea that balance is important in the body is true, but I think people have started obsessing about that and gone down this path of saying, oh my God, all omega-6, now that's toxic. But that means that you can't eat chicken, you can't eat pork, you can't eat so many things. That is absolutely not supported by scientific evidence. And it's a problem for the truth, right? Because there are a lot of people making money selling these seed oils. Let's just face that. That's face facts here. One of the big reasons they are in our food supply is because people are making money. They're cheap, and they're essential to the entire processed food industry. And there's a lot of corrupt people in America who are promoting them as healthy. And here's why this is a problem, to talk about like omega-6 and linoleic acid being a problem. Because when the media take that question about seed oils to these corrupt academics, the first thing that they do is they point to all the science saying, well, there's really no evidence that feeding animals high linoleic acid diets causes any disease. But you see what they've done is they've changed the subject. The subject is seed oils. And the academics just switch right over to omega-6 and linoleic acid. And they can only do that because of the people out there now that are saying, oh no, it's not the seed oils that are toxic, it's the linoleic acid, right? And that is a problem. And so that's why I'm glad you're having me on today, because I think people need to know this. It's really causing a lot of confusion, and it's shutting down the truth. So I think that conversation needs to stop. And I know there are some very smart people out there promoting that idea. And I would be, perfectly happy to speak with them personally and really help them understand my perspective a little bit better and why I think that they need to stop doing that.
How about this ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 in our blood? Does it have any implication? Because that ratio is also said to be having an implication in chronic disease, 1:1, 1:5, 50:1, or something like that. So that is the ancestral was 1:1 or 1:5, 1:10. Now it is something like 1:24, 1:50. So does this ratio make any difference?
Yes, it does make a difference because when you don't have a balance between the omega-3 and the omega-6, that affects your own body's ability to metabolize those properly and to make some of the long chain omega-6 that we need for our especially our brains, but for many of our other tissues, our nervous tissue, we need the like the DHA and the EPA. Those are omega-3 fatty acids that are long chain, that are made out of the shorter chain omega-3s that like are in walnuts, right? Flax and walnuts, those have omega-3. They don't have the kind of omega-3 that our brain needs and that our nervous system needs and that many of our body cells need. They have a kind that is too short. And that's okay when we have a more balanced diet because our body's enzymes can elongate those short ones and make them long, just like we need. But when there's an imbalance, that process doesn't go very well. And so we end up being maybe deficient, you know. But I say maybe because we don't know exactly the ratio that makes us deficient. Is it 1:5? Is it 1:20? We don't know. And we don't know because the answer depends entirely on that person's ability to handle oxidative stress. And that's what that's where my research comes in to help answer a lot of these questions. We have to consider oxidative stress. And so if you have a diet that has a lot of oxidative stress, you might need a 1:2, 1:1 ratio. But if you have an otherwise very healthy diet, you might be fine with a 1:5, 1:10 ratio. We don't know because these studies haven't been done. And I'm not saying they need to be done. I'm saying, we should avoid the hateful eight and then we're going to be healthier. We don't need a lot of research to know intuitively that when we stop eating toxic things, we're going to be healthier. Like we have research to support all of that. I don't think we need additional research, but a lot of people do. A lot of people just love saying, oh, we need studies for this and studies for that. And, fine, that would be very interesting. I'm not going to stop that process.
In India, we use refined sunflower oil, refined safflower oil, rice bran oil, maybe a bit of soybean oil, and then the traditional oils are there. So traditional oils are there in both the form, in cold pressed as well as refined. Now, what are traditional oils? They are coconut oil, sesame oil, peanut oil, and mustard oil. So they are both in refined form as well as cold pressed form. And of course, ghee and butter are there because still that fear exists on that cholesterol part or saturated fat part. So people tend to use more of refined oils and these oils. So would you say that cold pressed peanut oil is better than refined peanut oil?
So let's talk about the words cold pressed. In this country, that does not mean unrefined. So the term that we need to use is virgin. That means the oil was edible the minute it came out of the seed, whatever they did, which is usually a cold temperature technique. But technically, cold pressing just means that there was some pressure, mechanical pressure involved, and that no heat was intentionally added. But the problem is when you add a lot of pressure, you increase the temperature accidentally. You can't unavoidably. And you can get very high temperatures that way too, that are also damaging. And so that even though an oil might be cold pressed, if its crude oil is toxic and not edible, that is not healthy. Now, the meaning of the term may be different in India. I have not been able to get an answer to that because most of it is you come up with marketing people who are selling their oils and they don't give you the details. The thing is that it needs to be two things. Cold pressed, if it says cold pressed, you need to see one more thing, unrefined. I'm not sure you're going to see the term virgin anywhere except for on olive oil, even here. So if it's cold pressed, it has to be unrefined. And that means it's going to be very expensive, right? That's another way you can tell.
So how do the common man really know in India? I think we need to find out something on, because we know only as cold pressed, and maybe they put it in a small expeller or a small machine on one side and get the oil on other side. They don't add any chemical, and many of them are done manually also. Maybe electric current is used, but that is how they use. So
Yes, that would be fine. Unfortunately, there is no if there is no requirement for the label to say that this was refined or not, then I would just assume it was refined because it's much more expensive to use unrefined, much more expensive. So until there's a requirement, what business, what kind of company would volunteer to spend more money doing something they don't have to do that 95% of their customers do not appreciate? So we would have to increase awareness, which is what you're doing here today. And then maybe with the awareness, then the regulations might change. But when you buy the oil on the shelf, when you're not buying a processed food, you have to assume that I would recommend assuming that it is, unhealthy, unrefined. I mean, that it is unhealthy and refined. But if you're just buying the bottle, usually the bottle will say unrefined or not. And another thing you can do is just taste it. If it has a strong, bold flavor of sesame or mustard or peanut, then or coconut, right? Or palm, if it has a strong, bold flavor, then that's probably unrefined. Also, it's going to be the more expensive bottle, right?
yeah, that
So,
is the case. Whatever cold press is sold here, they are generally unrefined because they have very strong flavor. I mean, as soon as it comes out, they just bottle it and sell it. So, and they are expensive, 2 to 3 times higher priced than the refined ones. So, and
right.
they have very strong natural flavor. I think
Yes.
probably they are, I assume that they are cold press unrefined oil.
Those strong flavors indicate antioxidants and vitamins and minerals and nutrients that build your brain, that make your body strong, that make your nervous system work properly, that make your immune system work better. So some people see those strong flavors as a negative, but because it makes it like your food might become overpowered by the flavor. But you just want to match the flavor to whatever you're making. That's all. Right. So if you just want to be smart about it, like if something tastes good with peanuts, then you can use peanut oil. If something tastes good with, coconut, then you can use the unrefined coconut oil. It's not like a one cooking oil you can use for everything anymore. That's what you lose.
So can I display your chart, the one you posted in social media of the Hateful Eight?
Yeah, actually, I can display it if you want.
Yeah,
Do you
yeah,
have the
I
one with the
wanted to
green
explain
background?
this.
Oh, yeah, that's one. That's a really good one. Yeah, so this is my list of good fats and bad. So the good fats are in green, and you can see the ones where I've listed that they are all purpose versus caution with heat, right? Because some of them are still unstable and shouldn't be cooked with, right? So all purpose is olive oil, avocado oil, peanut oil. And by the way, these are the unrefined ones, right? Because you don't get onto this good fat category unless you are unrefined. So you can read that. But the ones that you want to be a little bit careful with the heat, even though sesame oil, you want to use it for stir fry, but stir fry is very quick, right? Stir fry is just like a minute or two. It doesn't stay there for a long time. And I personally will mix sesame oil with either peanut oil to help make it more stable with the all-purpose oils, or avocado, or I'm sorry, or coconut oil to help make the sesame more stable, right? And then, so we talked about the Hateful 8, that's under the don't eat bad fats category. And those are on the left, starting with the soy oil. And then there's some other similar terms of, hydrogenated oil. And, this must be an older version because it also has refined palm. So palm oil is now in the middle category. So we have to get the newer version over to you.
Yeah.
Or wherever this was. Social media doesn't update, but my website updates. So it's on my website. Yeah, refined palm used to contain more toxins than it does. They actually improved the process. So refined palm now, at least in America, is under my yellow category. Okay, but not great. There with the refined peanut, refined avocado, refined coconut. I also
I think
have in my yeah.
that puts things in a little perspective, because in India we do use refined palm oil. But we call it as refined bleach deodorized, RBD oil. For all the snack makers, they use this.
Yes. So that's good that you're not familiar with that term, RBD. I haven't been using that this whole time, but that's actually what I'm talking about, because refining in a factory with these Hateful 8 oils, it always involves all those processes, the bleaching and the deodorizing, plus more like worse things like de-waxing and washing and all kinds of stuff like that makes it, removes nutrients.
Thank you. Thanks, Kate. And I think we had a very good discussion. And I think seed oil is a very important topic for India. And as you believe that seed oil is the one which drives all the chronic diseases. And I think if we eliminate these and use some of those unrefined traditional oil, it'll always be good. So thank you very much. And I'll invite Anup Singh. Anup, please get Anup on stage. So as a vote of thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kate, for joining us. And it was a pleasure, listening to you. You made a very valid point, when you said about cold press does not mean unrefined, point number one. And if anybody has, been near even a mini scale expeller, if you touch the cake that comes out, it's pretty hot. It's pretty hot and you cannot touch it with your hand. So that's an excellent point. And thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. I just want to say one more thing is I explain a lot of these harms of these oils in my latest book called Dark Calories. And I believe your previous guest, Dr. Lufkin, he actually very kindly gave me a great endorsement on social media about it because he read that book. And so it's influencing a lot of doctors now. And I think if anybody wants to understand more about these oils, Dark Calories is it's the best resource I know of. It's why I wrote it, because we needed that. The world needs it.
Before we leave, one question, Kennedy Jr. has been making a lot of noise against seed oils. I don't know. I'm not following US politics, but in case he makes it to the position that is due to him, do you think the industry will not be able to corrupt him also?
Well, so yes, he has actually been confirmed. So that's great news. Just yesterday, it was like finalized. Yeah. So everybody in the movement, Make America Healthy Again, is very excited about that. Now, will he be corrupted? I don't think he's corruptible. That's why I like him. But I think he might be misled, right? I think he is very easy to be surrounded by people who are corrupted and believe what they're saying, right? Like if they're very close to you, if you're friends with them. So that could be a problem. And I see that as a big threat, because there are so many people who have helped him to get elected, and some of them may not have their hearts in the right place.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kate. And we'll interact again maybe in future. And we'll
I would
invite
love that.
and maybe a more detailed one, and maybe sometime we can meet physically also. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys very much too. Thanks for doing this.